Tim Legler had business shooting threes, and Legs joins us now. What advice would you give these shooters now, or maybe the coaches now, these kids who are coming up in grade school and high school that all think that's how you get to the next level by being a three-point shooter?
Yeah, Dan, that's a big challenge because you're right. I mean, this is what the NBA looks like now. I think for me, and I was a three-point shooter. That's how I made my living. It's a little monotonous for me to watch basketball now because it seems like that's the intent of every possession, to get a three-point shot. And it was used a lot differently. Obviously, when I played this different era, the problem is this is actually filtered all the way down to the youth level, certainly AAU level. Go watch an AAU tournament one weekend and sit there and watch 6-8 games on the court in front of you, pull up a chair and just take a look at what's going on. You're 100% right. There's a lot of guys taking that shot because they've been empowered to do it because people are telling everybody, the analytics say that's the way to play basketball now. And there's too many guys, to me, that have the ultimate green light that don't deserve it. That's what I see when I watch basketball now.
But I was wondering about this with Magic Johnson. Magic couldn't shoot when he first came out of Michigan State. I mean, he could run an offense. He was great, wonderful passer. I wonder how the NBA would treat him if he was just coming out and he couldn't shoot the three. Or, there's probably, 10s, 20, 30 players that you can think of that how would we view them now if they were coming out? Jason Kidd couldn't shoot. He became a good three-point shooter, but how do you think basketball would have treated, legend Hall of Famers like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, you're talking about guys now at the very top of the food chain, right? So you're talking about Magic, the most unique weapon in the history of the game at that position. 6'9", powerful, playing downhill. Yeah, no three-point shot, but I think people would look at him as a weapon that you can use to set up three-point shooters if he was coming into the league now. Because when you combine, his ability to rebound at that position, his ability to guard bigger guys, because the league now is set up that way that you want a 4 or 5 man that can switch out and guard guards. That's what he would be.
Yeah, but Ben Simmons
a guy like that.
But Ben Simmons Simmons is a great defender. He can get to the hoop. He's a good passer. He just can't shoot deep. And we go, how can he be an all-star? So
it's a very valid point, as particularly when you look at Ben Simmons, because you look at him and people are still, and I'm in the Philadelphia area still. I live here. So this is the team that I follow, that most of my conversations with my friends and people around here are about the Sixers, and specifically usually about Ben Simmons. I've kind of given up on that thought that AK is going to add this. It's just not going to happen. This is what he is. And we're always going to view him as a guy, as a result, that's lacking this one skill that a perimeter player needs in the NBA now, which is the ability to beat you from anywhere on the floor. Like, you can't get to superstar status in today's game unless you have that. So I think that's a very valid point about Magic. The one thing about Magic that I will say, I think he's the type of guy that could probably adapt to it a little bit better than Ben Simmons certainly has been willing to even compromise at all. I mean, he's actually regressed in terms of his willingness to look at that shot from 15 feet, much less the three-point line.
Could you help Lonzo Ball? I'm not saying fix. Could you help Ben Simmons? Maybe not fix?
No question in my mind. And I know that these guys, they've spent money. The teams have spent money. All these guys now have shooting coaches they work out with in the summer. There's no question. I've done it. I've not done it with a guy at that level in the NBA, but I've done it with countless players. And it's a process that you go through. And I think there is just, if you can get a guy to focus on 2 or 3 things, and I think there's about maybe literally 10 to 12 things that I could talk about ad nauseum, what goes into it, the mechanics of it. But you can't overwhelm a guy, because what's going to happen if you give someone too much, they're going to end up not having success early, and they're going to go right back to their old habits because that's where they're comfortable. So you've got to break it down to 2 or 3 things, and each guy's different. It might be something different with that particular player. And I do think there's a way to break through that barrier mentally, and get them to buy into 2 or 3 things from a mechanic standpoint and help guys. I don't think there's any question about it. I can look, it's the one thing I've been good at in my life, is doing that. And I know how to teach it. I know how to communicate it in a way that maybe they've never heard before. So yeah, I'm confident that I could do something like that.
And I was always taught that you start about 3 feet out from the basket, just underneath, and get your form, and then back up, make 10 in a row, make 10 in a row, 10 in a row, 10 in a row, get to the free throw line, make 10 in a row, and then you get to the top of the key. And that's the progression. Just get your form, get the feel, get the release, and then you can kind of build up your confidence. But, you watch Lonzo Ball. He runs away from shooting free throws at the end of a game. He's got a wide open three. How did he get to that point in his career?
Well, I will give him credit because when he came into the league, I had never seen any player shoot a basketball the way that he did. A right-handed player releasing the ball from his left eye socket. I had never seen anything like it. And as a result, he's a guy with great vision. He's a good defender. So he has all these skills that help you win. But that was a big problem. And I said, well, there's no way he can ever shoot a mid-range shot. How can you shoot a shot going to your right, your strong hand, have to stop and bring the ball back to the area where the defender is chasing you from? Can't happen. And as a result, he never really takes a mid-range shot. Now, I will give him credit. His stroke and release, it's night and day from when he came into the league. He's now at least a viable three-point shooter. He's a threat from out there, and you play against with Zion and Brandon Ingram, you're going to have to do it. He's at it. I give him a lot of credit. He put the work in. Very few guys that have had that much success to that point in their life would be willing to put the time in. And I think that's where Ben Simmons, I think you can absolutely critique him. It's not important enough to him. So I will give Lonzo Ball credit that he's gotten it to that point. How he ever got a stroke that looked like that in the first place, that's beyond me. I don't know how anybody along the way didn't stop that at a very young age and say, wait a second, what is this? You're the only person on earth who's ever shot a basketball that way.
But Kevin Durant does start on the left side and brings it over. Now,
that's different.
It's not as pronounced. It's not like a windshield wiper with Lonzo Ball. But, Durant, I always tell people that, like a golf swing, don't look at everything until the point of impact.
Right.
Like, where are you with club and the ball? And it's the same thing when you shoot. However you get there, what does it look like when you end up releasing the shot? And
it's a great point.
And Durant ends up in perfect position. He may not start, but he ends up in a perfect position.
He absolutely does. And you're right. And guys are going to get it there differently. And also, I will say to younger players, those aren't necessarily the guys you want to emulate. Like for instance, Dirk Nowitzki is one of the greatest shooters in NBA history. I would never advise a player that I was working with to shoot the ball with a 24-foot arc. I mean, the distance that Dirk Nowitzki's ball travels from his fingertip to the rim may be the greatest of any player in history that was a good shooter. That means there's far less margin for error because of the distance it's traveling. But he's a freak. Kevin Durant is a freak. So what I want to try to do with guys is, look, regardless of what feels comfortable to you, how you're getting it up there, bottom line is, by the time you get to just before release, it should look the same with everybody if you are going to be a really good shooter. I think one of the things that I've noticed with players, they have a really difficult time getting the ball to transfer from their entire hand to their fingertips before the release. And that's a big problem that guys just never seem to be able to break through. They also have a hard time, Dan, having their wrist and elbow lock at exactly the same time. Some guys never get to full extension, like Zion Williamson would be a great example of that. And he can make an occasional three, but can you imagine if he ever felt comfortable taking that shot with the amount of distance that people have to give him because he's so explosive? I don't know he's going to get there because he doesn't extend his left arm. Ben Simmons is the same way. Yeah. His wrist never makes it to this position. So there are little things. And look, part of it is the player. How much repetition are you willing to put into this?
He's Tim Legler, ESPN NBA analyst. Yeah, I don't know if you knew this, but we had Ray Allen in the studio. This was, a couple of years ago. And Ray had the ball on the palm of his hand. He was just holding it, and I corrected him. I said, Ray. and his look, I don't know why I did it, Tim, but I did. Here's maybe the greatest shooter, one of the greatest shooters. I mean, it's like critiquing Warren Buffett on investment portfolio. And I said, Ray, you got the ball on your palm of your hand. And I was always taught you don't have the ball in the palm of your hand. Was I wrong to critique Ray Allen?
No. In the context that would be a great segment, that's hilarious. But a guy like that, like for me, he was the greatest shooter that I had ever seen for probably about a decade until Steph Curry came along. I mean, Steph Curry's taken the art of shooting to a level I'm not sure will ever be replicated. Honestly, he's a once in a lifetime player. I do think this, Dan. I do think there's a generation of players that Steph Curry has helped, and I know the concept of the game maybe and philosophically, offensively, it's hurt some levels and some teams and some players. It's also helped guys because there's a whole lot of kids out there that looked at a guy that's 6'4", slightly built, not a lot of muscle definition, and he simply made himself this good through skill repetition. Because I think Steph Curry might be the greatest combination of the three skill elements of the game, pass, dribble, shoot, that we've ever seen. I think he is the highest combination of those three things. And it was simply done through repetition. And he didn't have to be a physical freak to do it. So I think that gives some kids actual hope, and it makes them go work on their game a little bit harder, which is a good thing.
Are you all in on the Jazz as far as being an NBA title contender?
100%. This is not something that's a great story or a great start. I'm watching them deep dive every night. Again, last night, perfect example. Here's what they do differently than anybody else, and I do compare them to the Warriors a little bit. When we first that splashed on the scene, we'd never really seen that kind of ball movement, player movement, quick, decisive reads and actions, and then ending up in the hands of a great shooter. Now, they don't have Steph and Clay on their team, but they've got a stable of guys that can do it, but the mentality is exactly the same. Everything is quick and decisive. It's all based off a high ball screen, a dive by Gobert or Favors, and now we're just going to get you to react to that, because if you know they're going to score at the rim. And now we've got super high IQ players. The ball is going to start hopping around a perimeter. We're always going to make the extra pass, and you're not going to catch up to the basketball. And it's a beautiful thing to watch, because for me, that's what great offense looks like. I know we were talking about the three-point shot and the heavy reliance on it. Well, when you get looks that good, you should play that way, because they're making 18 of these things a night. And you think about the Warriors, Dan, when Steph first splashed on the scene, we thought that was the greatest shooting team we'd ever seen. They were making 13 a night. This team is making 18 a game. Yeah. That's how different this is. So, yes. And the other thing is they defend. This isn't a one-trick pony where they've got to outscore you. They will defend on nights where they're not shooting well. And I think they're a legit title contender. Absolutely. Would not be shocked to see them, say, beat the Clippers in the second round if it ends up that way, and end up with the Lakers in the conference final.
Okay, talk Laker fans off the ledge.
Well, look, here's the thing. You have, obviously, you're missing AD and Schroeder. That's enormous. But here's the other thing. They're a defending champion. Go back through history. Defending champions, you get to midseason, there's typically going to be a foot off the gas a little bit mentality, because the freshness of the season is in your rearview mirror. And they were tired because they had a short turnaround. But the adrenaline of a new year gets you going. That's gone. The playoffs are too far away. It's cold as hell anywhere you go right now to play. That's a downer. The skies are gray. You're in a rut. You're also shorthanded. It's the perfect time mentally for them to sort of be going through the motions a little bit. And that's what I see in this team. There is absolutely nothing to worry about as long as Anthony Davis comes back healthy and stays back healthy. This team is going to the NBA Finals. Utah might have something to say about that. So I'm not as definitive on that as I was before the year. I made a joke when they added Harrell and Schroeder. Let's just make it a 10-game season and play the finals, because nobody can beat that team. I don't feel as definitive about that now because of the Jazz particularly. But still, if you've got AD and you've got that kind of versatility with LeBron and AD, and they're so unique in the problems they cause for you on both ends, for me, it's still the Lakers, so nothing to worry about. It's typical midseason doldrums for a defending champion that's shorthanded.
Legs, great to catch up with you again. We appreciate your time as always.
Always great, Dan. Talk to you soon.
That's Tim Legler from the Mothership.